QED 2017 is fast approaching, and you don't want to miss it. In the past, QED has brought you the Arrows of Time, the origin of recording, an escape from the Westboro Baptists, the sex bias of sex science, and all manner of other science, pseudoscience, activism, slacktivism, and more. Plus, insects for breakfast. Yum. QED 2017 takes place on the 14th and 15th of October in Manchester, England. We've already announced speakers like Sophie Wilson, co-inventor of the ARM computer chip, Simon Singh, who will be showing how to crack a genuine Enigma machine, Phil Scraton talking through the real-life cover-up of the Hillsborough tragedy, and physicists Helen Chersky and Tim O'Brien. We'll have a live show from the Parapod Boys, and the whole event will be emceed by ace magician Dave Annick. Have some laughs, meet some new friends, make new connections, all for only £109, including all the main stage talks, panels, podcasts, workshops, our Saturday night entertainment, and lots more. Check out qedcom.org for details. We'll see you in October.
It is Thursday, the 24th of August, 2017, and you're listening to Skeptics with a K, the podcast for science, reason, and critical thinking. Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptics Society, a non-profit organisation for the promotion of scientific skepticism on Merseyside, around the UK and internationally. I am your host, Mike Hall. With me today is Marsh.
Hello.
And Alice.
Hello.
So, Marsh, it was your birthday.
It was my birthday yesterday as of recording, because we are recording early.
Very early one.
Early enough for us to go to Edinburgh.
So, happy birthday, mate.
Thank you.
How was your birthday? Did
It was bloody lovely. Yeah, it was a lovely birthday. Had a lovely meal on Friday night, Saturday night. A lovely Japanese meal at my favourite Japanese restaurant.
Yes.
That was very, very nice.
That was good. It was
Had
fun.
drinks. And then on Sunday, on my actual birthday, Nicola surprised me by hiring a cinema to show a private screening of one of my favourite films and inviting all my friends to it, which was amazing. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. She hadn't told me. And as we were driving towards Woolton Village, I thought, we're just going to go up the cinema. And so even when I got there and we were meeting people there, I was that's really lovely. Meeting people there, I said, okay. And then Nicola walked in. I was like, well, did you get a ticket first? You have to buy a ticket. And then she was like, nope. And it was all empty. And I realised, she's hired the place.
Yes.
Which sounds massively extravagant, but it's quite a small cinema.
It is.
And they hire for quite reasonable prices when they don't have a screening on.
Yes, yeah. It's quite a small cinema that smells of piss as
well. Did it smell of piss? I don't think it smelled of piss.
I felt it smelled of piss.
Did you smell of piss, Mike?
I
think you must have smelled of piss.
I had an extended conversation with Garant about how pissy it smelled.
He smelled of piss.
You were sat in the row ahead of us, though?
Maybe I was sat in the pissy row. That's
what it was. But it's a lovely cinema. They've got those love seats at the back.
It was beautiful, and it was very old-fashioned. Kind of, you got that feeling of what a picture house,
proper vintage picture house. Like if you go and see a proper film there, like if you go and see a film that's normally scheduled, they still have an intermission in the middle of it.
That interval, you could see that little ice cream,
ice cream's around
thing at the front, little ice cream cellar at the front, and they had.
For listeners who are wondering, Miller's Crossing, the Coen Brothers film from 1990.
Well, we'll come to the film. Film because I like the film.
Good.
But also on the seat in front of you, ashtrays.
Ashtrays, yes, they did have ashtrays. That is true. A lot of leg room.
There was a lot of leg room. But these days you don't get ashtrays in cinemas, but you do, if you pay a little bit more, get a lazy boy seat
with less leg room, though.
With fewer leg room.
Room for fewer legs.
But the film we saw was Miller's Crossing, which I guess is one of your favourite films.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot of times. I think I only saw it for the first time about 11 years ago, something like that.
I didn't understand a word of dialogue for about the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everyone just mumbles in a heavy accent.
Well, it's very quick.
Much like this show. Actually.
Very much like this show. Yeah, everyone speaks very quickly in a very strange dialect, exactly like this show. They've got an odd lexicon. But no, once you tune into it, then you can rewatch and go like, I can hear everything now.
Get hold of what was going on once you tuned into it. And Gabriel Byrne in it looking very young.
And it's 1990. 27 years ago, Gabriel Byrne.
But I'd never seen the film before, and I really enjoyed the film. I think
it's the best Coen Brothers film. Well, I would say it's one of my favourite films.
Yes.
But I think it's in the top three. It's number one of the top three of Coen Brothers films, along with probably Big Lebowski and No Country for Old Men, I would probably say.
Okay.
Fargo's around there.
I've seen 3 out of 4 of those films.
Which one haven't you seen?
Big Lebowski.
You haven't seen Big Lebowski? Oh, Big Lebowski's good.
I've seen 1 out of 4 of those films.
What? And you saw it?
Which is Miller's Crossing.
You haven't seen The Big Lebowski?
No, I've not seen the big...
Any of the bigs
thing, and I've not seen. I've seen Big.
You've seen Big
with Tom Hanks.
That's different to The Big Lebowski.
But I've not seen The Big Lebowski. I've got Old Country for No Men sitting there waiting.
No Country for Old Men.
Old Country. The Old Country for No Men.
Old Country for No Men, I think, was the subtitle of Wonder Woman.
So I've got No Country for Old Men sitting there ready to watch and just haven't got around to it. What was the other one? Fargo. I always want to watch Fargo, but only because the chief judge in Judge Dredd is called Fargo. And that makes me think, is it a film about Chief Justice
Fargo? It's not
Fargo?
about Chief Justice Fargo.
And I didn't think it would be because I'd have heard of that.
Yeah, it's good. I'd say it's not as good as the other films.
Okay.
It's different because obviously your Coen brothers, you get a lot of dialogue, you get a lot of like interesting kind of weird oddities to characters sort of coming through. You even had that in Miller's Crossing. You get a couple of characters who are a little bit kind of unusual details to them. You got Johnny Gasper and his kind of obsession with ethics, and things. Whereas Fargo, it's a lot sparser, kind of all round. Steve Buscemi's very quick talking in it, but
Steve Buscemi's character, I thought, was one of the only obviously meant to be funny characers in it. Just that way he was talking.
Make the think in Miller's Crossing. Yeah. He talks so quick in that the sentences just run on. But yeah, and he only appears in it once, basically. And then again on the phone, but yeah.
But so I enjoyed the film. The dialogue was interesting because one of the things I noticed about the dialogue was that I thought the dialogue was simultaneously very good and dreadful. And by which I mean none of the people spoke how people speak. Everyone spoke in a way that sounded very scripted, and it was all like, here is my view. Here is a witty retort. Here is a retort to your witty retort. Oh, touché. And that was how all of the dialogue went all the way through the film. It sounded very scripted, but excellently scripted.
Yeah, it's beautifully stylized.
And, sounded really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. So that was. So thanks for enjoying that film, because otherwise I wouldn't.
You
have
would
seen
never have known about that film.
I would never have watched that film.
So we reviewed Spider-Man: Homecoming in the last show. We're now reviewing 27-year-old Miller's Crossing.
Spoilers for Miller's Crossing.
You had seen it before because you watched it with me about 2 months ago, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Did you like it as much the second time?
I followed it better the second time, so I liked it better the second time. Good. I have another sex toy to talk about.
Gotcha. Nice. Okay.
This time from a much bigger company than those who made those crystal butt plugs that we talked about recently.
A blood pug.
A blood pug.
A breed of dog, specifically?
Yes. A combination of breeds, probably.
Yes. Yeah. It's one that you use to clear up ink spillages. That's sort of a blot pug.
So this was sent to us by a listener called Olivia, and it comes from, if not the biggest sex toy manufacturer in the UK, it's certainly the most widely known. There's probably 2 well-known sex toy manufacturers in the UK, Ann Summers and Love Honey.
Oh yeah, Love Honey. They're owned by someone weird. Or they own someone weird.
They bought up a lot. Like, they've not been around that long in comparison to Ann Summers, but they have grown so big that they've bought a lot of other companies.
I think, and it sounds weird that I have this level of depth of knowledge, but I think they own Coco de Mel, which is like a really high-end one.
Coco de Mer. They recently bought out Coco de Mer.
I know it from bad PR, because Love Honey put out a load of really dodgy bad PR pretty often.
I'm going to mention that.
Oh, right.
Not much, but you've covered Love Honey quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do we know what Love Honey's opinion is on bee products?
They're uninterested.
They don't care. Not remotely interested.
I'm glad you went there rather than do we know what Love Honey is a euphemism for?
They describe themselves as I've forgotten now exactly how they phrase it, but it's like something like, the sexual happiness people or something. That's their tagline. They do kind of operate on different territories, though, Ann Summers and Love Honey. They have 2 very different, for saying they both sell the same products, they operate in different ways. Ann Summers being particularly well known for their high street stores and their propensity to sell products through their parties, whereas Love Honey very much pitch themselves as a discreet online seller.
Ann Summers, the parties, isn't that basically like Tupperware and multi-level marketing type stuff? Is that you've got to load up with a load of dildos first before you can start making any money?
Yeah. Amway, Tupperware, Ann Summers.
Yes, exactly.
That's the only people who use that business model.
Yeah, multi-level marketing people getting fucked from. I can't even get that joke out. You can see all the pieces of that joke right there. Yeah, screwed.
Love Honey do it to a degree with their Blue Bella lingerie range. They do Blue Bella parties.
Do they?
Don't do any sex toy parties. I'm sure we've talked about both companies before through Marsha's bad PR because sex and news go hand in hand. Actually, the sex toys I want to talk about were covered in the media. I found a news article from the Metro and from the Sun, so it's a good place to start. I hate clicking links for the Sun.
Yeah. What you need to do is you need to set up a VPN and then set yourself to Manchester rather than Liverpool, just so they don't get the clicks through
from our part of the world. Yeah. But the Sun headline was Sexual Attraction. Ann Summers promised women the best orgasm of their lives with new magnetic sex toys.
I see what they've done. Attraction. Yeah. It's sexual attraction. It's a sex toy and it's
magnetic
a magnet.
Sex toy. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Their subheading was High Street Giant's new magnetized range offers hundreds of different ways to reach climax.
Magnetize seems like a boring name for it. It seems like there should have been a pun somewhere in there that was better, and I can't think of it at the moment, but I'll see what I can do.
You're just tuning out for the rest of the story.
Yeah, I'm not listening now to even get somewhere. I've got a clock ticking.
They're kind of pitching this as a luxury brand, so as a luxury toy. So they're probably not going to be wanting puns or things.
No.
Yeah, not a lot of luxury brands use a pun for a title.
Generally not. The article opens, Ann Summers,
It's like a love pole.
Love pole.
Well, I guess a magnet has a pole. Going south. I don't know. There's got to be something we can do here.
The article opens, Ann Summers has launched a new range of sex toys that claim to use the power of magnets to give women the most intense orgasms of their lives. The High Street Giant's new magnetized range includes strategically placed magnets intended to stimulate and increase sensitivity for out-of-this-world orgasms. Whereas the Metro article says, bored of using thrusting and vibrating to get off? Fancy using some magnets instead?
In fairness to the Metro, the Metro Online often has a fairly ridiculous and tongue-in-cheek chattiness to them. I think they're putting a different media hat on. I think they're trying to mould their online space more as a competitor to BuzzFeed than a rip-off of the Daily Mail, which is what they were doing.
That's actually not my issue with that that couple of sentences. I've got a bit of a ranty aside here because this is something that really pisses me off. The Metro in particular seems to be implying that the only purpose of any sexual engagement is to orgasm. You can get bored of doing the thing that gets you to orgasm as if that's the purpose and that's the point in it. This is something that Durex launched a campaign around recently, claiming over 2/3 of women don't always orgasm when they have sex, suggesting that has to be a bad thing. They want everyone to have earth-shattering orgasms every time. Never mind that some people struggle to orgasm and shouldn't be made to feel like that's some sort of failure. And some people don't enjoy orgasms or find them painful or uncomfortable. I get really annoyed about any pressure around what sex should be, whether it's that only penetrative sex counts as real sex, which is unhelpful to people having sex without a penis, people who can't have penetrative sex for any reason, be it mental or physical health or just lack of desire for it. Whether it's that sex only counts if one, usually the man, or both members orgasm, that sex has to be between two people, that you're a bad lover if you don't make your partner or partner's orgasm, that if you can't orgasm in this particular way, you're not doing it right, that if you orgasm too soon, you've done something wrong, but if it takes you too long, then you're hard work, that oral sex is only foreplay and doesn't count as sex, that penetration with anything other than a penis doesn't count as sex, that penis anywhere other than the vagina doesn't count as sex. Can we not just let each individual relationship define what sex is to them? Rant over. And the Ann Summers website has a video which tells us all about their magnetized sex toys. In it, Ann Summers as Sexpert, which I'm not going to get onto that rant.
They can fuck off, though. Yeah. They can fuck off with that fucking...
It's not Tracy Cox by any chance, is it?
No, it's not.
She's usually the sexpert in most things.
She's the go-to sexpert. She partners with Love Honey usually.
Okay, that's why.
Although she's got her own range of stuff going on as well.
I'm sure she does.
This is a sexpert called Eve, who says, we started looking at some innovative technology last year, and one of the things that's coming through as a trend, not just in the sex toy industry, but everywhere else, is homeopathy.
Oh, fucking hell.
And how you can use natural products to influence your sexual gain, how you feel about having sex, how you want to have more sex, and to actually make sex better.
Your sexual gain? Or game?
Gain.
Your sexual gain?
Yeah.
What the hell is sexual gain? Is that like a microphone pickup?
When you gain something sexually?
It's how good you are at picking up.
It's probably a buzzword that they use at sex toy companies.
It probably is, isn't it?
But so from what you've just said, homeopathy, which means they're using homeopathy to mean
natural medicine.
Alternative medicine.
Yeah, so they're misusing the word homeopathy and they're
yeah.
misusing magnets.
At first, I did think it was just like a slip of the tongue that she's done this fairly informal video and she's just briefly mentioned, like she's talking about natural products, but she's slipped in homeopathy because it sounds about right, and it was just a bit of a slip of the tongue. But they do say it on their website as well, so they've clearly just not Googled it. What else they say on the website is 21 ways to orgasm powered by magnets. For an earth-shattering climax, we've turned to the elements.
21 ways? Blimey, that's got to be pretty inventive.
I mean, in fairness, a lot of orgasms will be driven by magnets. They're an intrinsic part of an electric motor.
That is true. That is true.
Yes.
God, imagine if that's all they were saying. All of this. That's just a fancy way of saying, yeah, they've got motors in them still.
They say the addition of strategically placed magnets inspired by homeopathy are intended to stimulate and increase sensitivity for out-of-this-world orgasms. And the homeopathy thing is repeated in the Metro article, which says, apparently the magnets are inspired by homeopathy and work to stimulate blood flow, which increases sensitivity and encourages nerve signals to ignite.
I mean, the magnets aren't going to do that.
No.
Having something on the end of it might, but that's not going to be useful, really. Yeah.
Maybe this is their kind of sneaky way of saying that they didn't actually put any magnets in. They're homeopathic magnets. They're not.
Right, it's got the memory of magnets. Yeah.
Rather than putting any in.
There's got to have been something about attraction. That's got to be the direction that you would start to...
The Metro beat you to
the names. For the name of it, that's got to be the range, is like the attractor or something like that.
It's terrible.
Well, not literally attractor, but something in that area. That's going to be much better than magnetize.
Probably.
Because magnetize implies that it will magnetize you. Like you'll come away magnetic. Because if you want to magnetize a spoon, what do? You take a magnet and then you rub it vigorously back and forth across the spoon. You're going to end up with a magnetic fanny. That's what this thing is going to do.
It's not a good look, is it? It's not a good
not.
Look. First time you walk into a lift, clang.
Basically, Ann Summers have designed a range of 6 sex toys. So they've got a rabbit vibrator, the classic style that Ann Summers is famed for inventing and Sex and the City is famed for promoting.
Did Ann Summers invent the rabbit vibrator?
Yes.
Oh,
I was in an Ann Summers once looking at vibrators. There's more to this story. It just was funny to leave a pause there.
Oh, okay. So, is this like the time you accidentally went dogging? Did we have that on the show?
I don't think we've talked about it on the show.
We may have not mentioned it on the show.
I think we got mentioned at the show, but I think it was on a show that dropped. I think it was on in part of a story that dropped.
Yes, it may well.
So let's never tell that story.
So I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I accidentally went docking once, but that's a different story.
Different story.
So I was in an Ann Summers and I was looking at the vibrator, and obviously the rampant rabbit's got the 2 little rabbit ear things that are supposed to sit like either side of the clitoris, and then they buzz through the vibrations of the electric motor powered by magnets.
You are mansplaining vibrators to Alice here.
Powered by magnets.
I think he's doing it for the benefit of the listeners.
Oh, okay. So you are mansplaining to the percentage of our audience that are not men.
But there are other people who've ripped off the design of the 2 little things that go either side of the clitoris.
There's hundreds of different types of rabbit vibrator now. And not all of them have the rabbit ears.
Are some of them hairs? Whether it's a bit longer. I think.
The rabbit thing is trademark. You can't have a rabbit thing. So some people, I've seen a dolphin one, some people use a dolphin, but there was this one that had, like, it was white and it kind of had rabbit ear things, came down horizontally, and I kind of looked at it and went, that looks a lot like a kind of rampant earwig. Which isn't really what you want to be shoving down your pants, really.
No.
The rampant earwig. Said this with an earshot of a member of staff who said, I'll never be able to sell one of those again. And my work is done.
So they also have, within the range, a vibrating butt plug, a vibrating cock ring, a vibrating dildo, a clitoral stimulating vibrator, and a remote-controlled panty vibrator. I get really annoyed when they use American terms from British.
Panties are ridiculous.
You don't say
word.
panty in Britain. It's
it's not an interesting word. It's infantile.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Well, what would be the alternative? What would be the British alternative to that?
Knickers.
Knickers.
Yeah, but
it's knickers.
Knickers sounds a bit carry-on film.
It does
though,
sound a bit
doesn't
carry-on
it?
film.
Underwear,
possibly, yeah. Because no one's ever in a sexy voice said, "I'm going to take off my knickers."
I think it's the me bit that's throwing you out there, to be honest.
You've given your sexy lady a very, very northern accent.
Yeah, your sexy lady is a pensioner from Coronation Street, basically. It's Les Dawson in those sketches. Yeah.
It is genuinely going to be an issue in British porn that you can only be from the home counties for it to work.
Yeah.
I'm I'm sure there is a market for that. But...
Yeah, there's got to be.
Hey, I'll put it up to us. It's just not a sexy accent.
I think it depends on what you're saying and how you're saying it, to be honest. I don't think any sex chat goes well when you start it with A up. Just like, how are?
But what they all claim, what all these toys from this range have in common, according to Ann Summers, is that they all have magnets in them.
Which they probably do, but not where they say or why.
Well, they may have put magnets in them. The magnets are not necessarily doing anything, but they may have put them in there. They may not have done. Like, there's no evidence that there's a magnet in there. They all apparently have an ergonomic design within which they've incorporated their climax technology.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, their climax technology is just about the depth of the vibration of the motors. They say they've got like a deeper resonance to their vibration, and therefore it's better.
I don't really know what that means. A deeper resonance.
They don't really explain it very well. They kind of just talk about the depth of the vibration.
But depth in what sense?
They mean like the depth.
How deep it is buried within the object?
No, they mean like how deep the sound is, like a higher pitched.
Oh, right.
But that's not depth, is it?
That kind of deep.
Yeah.
What would that be? Magnitude? Like amplitude?
A deep pitch to the vibration. I think that's what they mean.
But what would cause a deeper pitch? That'd be slower, basically, wouldn't it? Something bigger and slower.
Well, the weight of the motor would play a role in it, I guess.
That's a good point, which would increase the amplitude, which...
Yeah.
You dial it up enough, you got VOT. You can basically massage your own pancreas
from the inside. Yeah.
You might have better luck doing it that way. So they all have this climax technology and a boost function, which is marketed as something kind of unique, but really it just means that they have these pattern settings to the vibration, and you can intensify any of them times 2.
Okay.
But they market it as this special, amazing boost function.
That just makes me think of the chocolate bar boost. You don't want that. You've gone out all a bit... was it Mary LaFrostrup? Who was the one who was married to... who's gone out with Mick Jagger?
I've not heard that story since I was about 14.
Yeah.
So I have got no idea.
Marianne Faithfull, maybe?
Possibly.
It was a Marianne.
I mean, it would just slander anyone whose name begins with M at the moment.
Anytime you see a Marianne with a chocolate bar, basically, it's probably that rumour.
Eve says, the fundamental reason behind magnets is it's believed to change the blood flow in your body. So when you're applying it to certain places and certain pressure points, it can excite the blood cells.
That isn't what a magnet is designed to do or does.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Okay.
But I like the inconsistency there that she started with blood flow and moved on to blood cells. So that's exactly the same thing. Now, what happens is our biggest thing that we're after is to get as many blood cells to that part of the body as possible.
Why?
That sounds unhealthy.
So if we can put magnets in products that are really excitable areas, really we should be able to get the blood flow going, more blood flow, more excitement, more nerve endings, more orgasms.
More nerve endings. More nerve endings. Okay.
That's how that works.
It causes more nerve endings. That already sounds bad.
There's plenty wrong with this statement.
I mean, there's already lots of nerve endings there. You don't want more of them, I don't think.
There are plenty of nerve endings
there. It's pretty clustered.
Firstly, nothing you can do with a vibrator is going to increase nerve endings in the genital area. You might be able to change your neuroplasticity in the brain by adjusting nerve stimulation outside of the brain. So I've talked about this before in relation to how your brain adjusts, how it registers and responds to pain when you're suffering with chronic pain. But all of this requires an active stimulation of the nerves, which you're not getting with the magnet plonked in the middle of your vibrator. You are going to get it from your vibrator, but not from the magnet. And yeah, magnets aren't doing anything. They can't stimulate blood flow. They can't excite blood cells. They're just magnets.
Excite blood cells.
Magnets don't interact with our blood.
I don't know how you excite a blood cell.
As we've talked about on the show before, if blood was ferromagnetic, we could never go in an MRI.
Yeah, you'd just be pulled apart.
You would just explode.
Yeah.
You would go...
So our blood is not ferromagnetic. If it were, MRIs would be disastrous. I found a great article on the Naked Scientists website that explains this. They spoke to Stuart Richmond from the Department of Health Sciences at the University of York, who said deoxygenated hemoglobin is paramagnetic and very slightly attracted to a magnet. And also both oxygenated hemoglobin and blood plasma are diamagnetic, or in other words, slightly repelled by a magnet. However, he also stresses that the magnets can't have any appreciable appreciable effect on the blood, largely because of the force behind the flow of our circulation. Since blood is actively pumped around the body, the force outweighs the very small forces of dia or paramagnetism, because ferromagnetism is the only type of magnetism that you can actually feel the force of it. Mm-hmm. Similarly, blood is warm and therefore gently moving around according to Brownian motion, which is movement of particles in fluid, a thing that's generally increased slightly under warmer conditions. And not only that, we have no evidence that magnets help for anything else.
Hang on, blood moves under Brownian motion because it's warm. You would have thought that the volume of blood per surface area wouldn't be high enough for Brownian motion to really be an appreciable effect when you've got a heart pumping blood around. You think
it's not an appreciable effect, but it still happens. Like, even if you had still blood, I think his point in the piece that
is if you bled someone and put that in a jar and then warmed it, you'd be a psychopath. That's the point that he's making. But in the body, Brownian motion isn't going to be what's going on with the blood, because you'd have thought that it's under pressure. And it's under pressure with a constant pump. So I don't think you can have Brownian motion if there's under constant pressure with a pump.
I think you're probably right, but I think also that, as Alice has said, it's going to be there'll be an effect, but it'll be a minor effect, which is utterly swamped by
the pressure.
I'd be amazed if you could even register it.
Blood flow.
I'd be amazed if you could register Brownian motion in a active blood flow.
Yeah, probably.
Listeners, if you've ever measured Brownian motion in an active blood flow,
but it's like the Coriolis effect. When people say the Coriolis effect, it is a thing. It's just a very, very small effect. And they've done an experiment with the Coriolis effect where they got tanks of water that was the size of a fucking village or something, and left it for 7 years to settle before they pulled the plug hole out and said, "Oh look, it spins ever so slightly clockwise in the northern hemisphere." Utterly swamped by all of the other effects that go on. So the effect is there, it's just utterly swamped by everything else.
Ditto with magnetism. There is a type of magnetism in your blood. It is utterly swamped by everything else.
If we've got a listener who's an expert in fluid dynamics, write in, because I'm genuinely interested as to whether there could be any amount of Brownian motion in blood under pressure with a constant pump, or an intermittent pump, I suppose.
So not only that, we have no evidence that magnets help for anything else. In the video, Eve mentions that magnets are sold by companies like Boots.
Famously, Boots also sell magnets that would go on panties.
They do.
Or knickers.
They do sell.
For period pains.
They do that.
The fanny magnets.
So Eve mentions the magnets are sold by companies like Boots in bracelets and can help with anything from feeling better about yourself, lifting your mood and stopping travel sickness. And the Sun article says, ever since the Renaissance period... people have believed that magnets' living energy can counter aches and pains and ward off diseases and infections.
Is that the first time the Sun has ever recognised the Renaissance? They've ever acknowledged the existence of the Renaissance period?
While magnetic bracelets are still popular with people suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, recent studies have shown they have no noticeable effect on the condition or its symptoms. And actually, I'm going to agree with the Sun on something. In addition to there being no scientifically plausible reason that magnets would affect our blood, there's also no evidence that it helps for any health complaint it's been tested for. There's no reason to believe that magnets and sex toys will do absolutely anything. At least, to be fair to Ann Summers, they're using it as a marketing ploy, but they're not bumping the prices super high in accordance with that. Their luxury rechargeable toys are within the normal range of a sex toy. The Rabbit vibrator is about £80, which is about mid-range for a rechargeable Rabbit sex toy. Battery-powered ones can cost less than £10, but for the design, material and USB charging of the Ann Summers toy, £80 is about what you'd expect to pay from other retailers. You're looking at around £150 for a really high-end toy like the Lalo Insignia, and down to maybe £50 for a basic Love Honey rechargeable Rabbit vibrator. But they're not bumping up the price because they've got this alternative thing in it. So it actually probably is a fairly reasonable option if you're in the market for a new sex toy. Just don't expect the magnets to do anything for your orgasm.
I tend to use Google Alerts a fair bit. I don't know how you guys source stories, but I've got some a Google Alert set up that kind of deliver me on a daily basis weird things.
Okay.
Some of them are for stuff that I'm doing. So there'll be a Google Alert for Merseyside Skeptics Society, a Google Alert for Good Thinking Society, so we can see whenever we've been mentioned in the press or blogs and that kind of thing, so we can see who's talking about us, which is always a useful thing to know. But others are for woo topics. So I've got one for homeopathy, which tends to overlap very heavily with the one that I have for Good Thinking Society, it turns out. I've got one for chiropractic, so not just in the news, but people just talking about chiropractors generally. And it's why earlier this month, my inbox was filled with news headlines like this. Psychics and tarot card readers needed in Cambridge, from Cambridge News. Feeling spiritual, you could work from home as a psychic or tarot reader. That's from Hull Daily Mail. Here's how to get a job as a psychic and work from home, from Gloucestershire Live. How to get a job as a psychic and tarot card reader in Cornwall, from Cornwall Live. How to get a job as a psychic and tarot card reader in Coventry, from the Coventry Telegraph. Work from home, psychic card readers required. All you need is a phone, from the Nottingham Post. Are you psychic? Do you feel that working from home is the perfect lifestyle for you? There's a job offering just that, from Get Surrey. Can you see the future? We predict this job could be for you, from the Chronicle Live. Have you got psychic skills? Here's how you could get paid a job as a tarot reader, from Huddersfield Examiner. Could you see yourself working from home as a tarot reader? Lucrative jobs for psychics on offer, from the Grimsby Telegraph. And do you have the psychic gift? There's a job for you, from Devon Live. You've got to wonder what happened to spark such a national dearth in talented psychics. Was there a crystal ball shortage? Have every other mystics out there given up the ghost and gone for an honest 9-to-5 office job, and there's all these unfulfilled tarot jobs out there? Or have we won? Did we win? Have they all given up? Is this it? No, unfortunately, that's not the case. Have a look at one of the articles. Let's take the Nottingham Post one of these 15 or so, for example. If you've ever felt you've got that psychic touch, this could be the job for you. All you need is a phone, either mobile or landline, and previous experience of reading. Livelines UK is looking for psychic, tarot and angel card readers to work from home. Your role will be providing readings for callers from all around the world. You'll be given full training, and payment is made every 2 weeks. Those applying must have previous experience of reading, whether with a family or in a professional capacity. The job advert also states that you should have a spiritual ability and to be able to offer readings in a caring and non-judgmental manner. That was from the Nottingham Post, but that might as well have been any of the other articles that I mentioned there, because although they've all got different authors and different bylines, they're pretty much identical articles, every single one of these by and large.
Okay. So presumably this has come from a press release.
That's what I'm thinking. They're all pointing to the same job advert advertised on the jobs website, Fish for Jobs.
Okay. And what the fuck are angel cards?
They're like tarot cards.
I don't know. Tarot cards, I know that one, and obviously the kind of standard psychic shit. Yeah, but angel cards is a new one on me.
Well, you get like guardian angels on the cards, and it's which guardian angel is then saying stuff about you, not like whispering behind your back. Okay, so we've got the Michael card, the angel Michael card, and that means such and such kind of thing. But it's just another form of tarot. It's just weird pictures on a bit of rectangular cardboard that allows a liar to lie to you convincingly. If you're thinking the similarity between all of these stories is because Fish for Jobs were able to psychically beam the chosen wording into the minds of more than a dozen local newspaper journalists, you've not been paying attention here. This is bad PR gone local, effectively. So it's been a while since I mentioned bad PR, but one of the good tactics for if you want to be working in the PR world and exploiting the problems that exist at a national level is you target the national newspapers to get a really big story, a big national impact. Nationals are by and large pretty starved of content a lot of the time. Huge cuts to their resources, not enough journalists to do the amount of work they need to do, so journalists are looking for stories. We talk about this quite a lot. But it doesn't always pay to target the national newspapers, because while the nationals have been cut pretty hard, the locals have been cut even harder, which makes them even more likely and susceptible to a story, especially if you can kind of crowbar in a local angle. And we see this a lot with bad PR stories where they'll say people from Birmingham have the most affairs, women from Coventry are having the most affairs, men from Newcastle are having the most affairs, and it's just you take a data set, start cutting it up and sticking a different town on different parts of it, and you can almost guarantee that town will pick up that part of the story, and you get a good kind of level of coverage for the same story. You sell it multiple times. And it's even worse when a lot of the local papers are owned by the same group, so a Trinity Mirror group, and they tend to syndicate content. So they'll all be pulling from the same initial source place. So you get it in there first, and you can get a good amount of coverage, or you just look at journalists, find journalist names across papers across the country, and email them directly, and you get a good return rate. And I think that's what happened here with Fish for Jobs, specifically on the behalf of a company called Livelines UK. So effectively, the UK local press network end up advertising psychic and tarot card readings completely uncritically. This is a job. You can earn money. You can work from home, do your own hours. All you need is to be a compassionate kind of reader, that type of thing. Now, the thing about this is these lines aren't harmless. You can see them as being a little bit of fun. You see them in the back of It's Fate magazine and Chat magazine, things like that. But they're often pretty expensive. Livelines, to their credit, are a lot cheaper than a lot of lines out there. They cost about 50 to 60p a minute, something in that kind of area.
That's still steep, though.
But there's others that are out there that are 80p a minute, £1 a minute. Sally Morgan's team of psychics charges £1.50 per minute or £1 per SMS message for her team, which her website described as My Talented Psychics. This is my psychic team, My Talented Psychics. So live lines are actually pretty reasonable in a market of unreasonable people. They're just one of the people providing these services. And the thing is, most of the listeners, even if they're familiar with psychic lines, probably aren't familiar with live lines. And it's easy to think that they're not a big player in the industry for that reason. But that misses something crucial about how the entire tarot line business works. Because you might see your big-name psychics advertising phone readings with their hand-selected readers, the people they've got out. And you kind of wonder, how's that hand selection process taking place? Like Sally Morgan, how does she put together her team of talented psychics for her site? Well, she does it the same way that psychic Chris Riley does, and psychic Dean James Fox does, and the same way that the astrologer Justin Toper does for his website and also for his Mirror column. Because Justin Toper, you'll see, has a column in the Mirror. You don't see as many astrology, like legit, but like unironic astrology columns in the papers, but you used to see them all the time. Did you realise that? How much do you think the astrologer gets paid for having that column in there?
I would hazard to guess that they don't get paid out. They get paid commission on the phone number that they stick at the bottom. So that they stick for their phone number at the bottom that says, call this thing, and that's where they get their revenue from.
Yeah, it's sort of, they pay the newspapers.
It's basically an ad.
Yeah.
Basically a big ad.
It's ad for their phone services,
okay.
Yeah. So in many cases, they will pay the newspapers to be able to put their astrology column in, because at the bottom you've got these £1.50 a minute lines. That's how those tend to work. But all of these, Justin Toper, Dean James Fox, Chris Riley, Sally Morgan, they pay a company called All Star Psychics and just take the feed from their online system and embed it in their website and call it My Psychic Team.
Okay.
But they don't work for Sally Morgan. They don't work for Justin Toper. They work for All Star Psychics. So when it says, this is my psychic team, you got to wonder how handpicked they actually are. So that's one of them, All Star Psychics. Live Lines UK are just another similar company. And I think there is some damage that can be done by these, and I'll come to that in a moment. But they are very, very lucrative. They can be very, very lucrative for those companies involved, even if you find what they do to be pretty abhorrent. That said, a job's a job. I work for a small charity for a living, so who couldn't use it for a bit of extra income? So obviously I applied for the job. So I clicked apply on the Fish for Jobs website.
Okay.
I've applied for a job as a phone line psychic.
Do you have spiritual ability?
I reckon I could convince the people who are running a phone line for it. There's a few reasons why I reckon I can convince them that I'm the man for the job. So the first thing you do when you click apply, you go straight to their website for the Live Lines, and you go to the application form for Live Lines UK. Question 1, I would like to apply for 2 checkboxes. 1, psychic and tarot chat. 2, adult chat.
Okay, so they run porny lines as well.
They run porny lines as well, because of course the company running psychic lines also runs phone sex lines.
Yeah,
of course, if you've got the infrastructure to run that, just because that's psychic on the line.
Yeah.
They are definitely as interested in what you're doing in the future as that sex chat lady is interested in what you're doing in the present. They've got the same level. The tarot reader is definitely running her fingers through a deck of tarot cards to precisely the same extent that the phone sex... You get the idea.
Yeah.
You get the idea there.
Sure, yeah. I'm just going to take off my knickers.
And then I'll get the tarot deck out, love. It's my method. It's my method. What can I say? I don't know why I've turned Bernard Manning on a phone sex line. Anyway. But yeah, often they're literally run out of the same operation. And also, if you're going to go one further than that, like Babe Station, those kind of like late night comes on the TV when the normal program is finished, and it's just like the phone sex line, but you can actually watch the people coming on there, and you can see people not coming on there. You watch the people on there. They're not only run by the same companies as the ones who do psychic TV. Okay, where you phone up and get exactly the same thing. You phone up and get a psychic reading rather than a sexy chat. But they're often filmed in the same building on a different floor. So this is an overlapped business. And of course it makes sense because it's an identical business. Yeah. Every part of this, right down to the level of exploitation of people with your business model, is pretty much identical. So, you're on this application form. Fill in the form. That's all there is to it. There's no complicated CV. There's no covering letter. I don't have to explain how I've got my psychic ability, how psychic I actually am, what I do. Don't have to explain any of that stuff. I just fill in the form, stick your name, address, date of birth in there, email address, bang, you're in. Although you do have to sign a contract on the next page just to submit the application form. You're signing an actual contract at this point.
Okay.
Including the payment details, which is amazingly. And what's even better is, I've said I want to do the tarot line. Mm-hmm. The contract you sign is identical to the point where it includes details for both lines. So, for example, for the adult line, it has a little block there with the cost. So, for that adult line, which might be £1.50 a minute or £1 a minute, you get paid 14p per minute.
Okay.
For the tarot and psychic line, 16p per minute. 2p extra.
You get paid more for the psychics than the porny chat.
2p more for the psychics than the porny chat. Also, I point out Sally Morgan, her website talks about £1 per SMS message from her team. I'm not sure how much it charges you to get an SMS message from Livelines UK, but I do know that if you are on the porny sexy line, it's 15p for every image you send on SMS. If you're on the psychic line, sending an image on SMS, also 15p. Which I think that's a disparity. If I'm sexting strangers, I want to get more than if I'm just sending them a picture of a tarot card. I think it's absolutely incredible. So you get paid slightly more for being psychic than for the sex chat. It also says on the contract, by signing this agreement, you agree that you are entering into a self-employment contract offering operator services to Lifelines UK on a non-exclusive basis. Which means I think I've got the job. I think I'm officially now either a psychic phone line worker or a sex chat worker, and I'm not sure which yet. I'll find out soon enough when my phone rings. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, really. I mean, I'll try and read the conversation first, because I don't want to head that conversation in quite the wrong direction. You also get a handbook to read. You're supposed to read it before you click accept on the contract. I read it after. There's a handbook for either job. The adult one does specify that it's only open to women over the age of 18, which is a shame. It also specifies that you must be bubbly, friendly and outgoing and a real chatterbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the psychic one doesn't say you have to be over 18.
I think it might just say over 18. It might not say women.
Okay.
Or I think elsewhere you have to specify that you're over 18. You put your date of birth in, things like that.
Right, okay.
But you are allowed to be a male psychic. You aren't allowed to be a male sex chat line worker under this company. So I want to give you a few little highlights of the handbook before I finish. So you got the psychic tarot card one here. It says, this is one of the introductory paragraphs. We are an extremely busy tarot, psychic and medium service, and we take calls from UK and internationally. If you have a spiritual ability, either with tarot, psychic and medium or angel card readings, we would like you to join our busy team and start earning money from home. Please note, we do not provide training on how to conduct readings, and you need knowledge of how to read before you apply to us. Your experience could include reading for family, friends, and in a professional sense. So when they say you are fully trained, they mean trained on how to use a phone, not how to use a tarot deck. That's the level of training you get.
They don't even supply a copy of Ian Rowland's book.
Not even a copy of Ian Rowland's book. The sex line, as it turns out, you get a bit more training. And I want to read you, this is the last I'll say of the sex one, but I found these paragraphs quite interesting. So this is in the sex manual. What do I say on the calls? To make the most money from the calls, you must keep the callers on the phone for as long as you can. We put together a useful blog that's full of tips and helpful advice when it comes to taking your calls, and they give a link to the blog. Most of the calls will be of an adult nature. Most. It's an adult sex line. So you must ensure that you are fine to talk about sexual topics. We only allow legal content on our service. When you are trained, we'll let you know what you can't talk about. When you're taking calls, you must have a lot to talk about. For example, you must think about your phone's sex character. What does she look like? What's her name? Where does she work? And what are her hobbies? I mean, we know where she works. She works in a phone sex. You need to get a notebook and write down points all about your character. This will help you when you receive calls and you've got lots to talk about. Also, you can talk about the news, politics, hobbies, food, etc. The more content you have, the longer your calls will be. You've got to be disappointed if you phone a phone sex chat line and they just start talking to you about the alt-right, the rise of the alt-right in America. Unless that's your thing. And it turns out in America, it seems like that's a lot of people's thing. It also says, to be a good chatline operator, not only do you have to be friendly and flirty, you need to do your research. Look up phone sex sites online, read our blog, read sex stories, and keep up to date with current fetishes. I just like that idea of I've not kept up to date with current fetishes. What week is it? I'm a week out of date. Everything could have changed. It's not like the NASDAQ. It's not like the exchange rate. I think some things have a level of universality that they're not changing that quickly, I imagine. Anyway, that frippery aside, back to the psychic one. So they have a section called the Trusted Psychic Service, and they put Trusted Psychics in inverted commas. I think that's because that's the name of their service, because they have a website called trustedpsychics.com, but still, don't put that in inverted commas. It says, to become a reader with Live Lines UK, you must be over 18 years old. You must have a good telephone manner, that bit's in bold, that is compassionate and friendly, and also have a spiritual ability. That bit's not in bold. not the spiritual ability in bold. It says, you are paid for your talk time on the phone to the caller. You are not paid for the first minute of each call. You're classified as freelance, non-exclusive operator. Therefore, we do not deduct tax or national insurance from your revenue. So basically, it's a 0 hours contract. But you don't get paid for the first minute of each call, which I think is interesting. Because I wonder how much that influences the way the structure of the call is in that first minute. They also ask you to do an introduction message. So when people are phoning up, they can hear a little bit about you when they choose you. So you need to make a front introduction message that's around 50 to 60 seconds long. This is part of the call still. So an introduction message that's 50 to 60 seconds long. I guess you don't get paid for the first minute in case your introduction shit. The introduction message is what the callers will hear when you're logged on. It should include the following: your reader name, what your spiritual abilities are, your experience with conducting readings, if you specialise in any area, such as love and relationships, and a brief summary of your character. For example, non-judgmental. Nice one in there. It also said you can do an online profile.
As opposed to what?
Judgmental, yeah. I am a judgmental arsehole. Give me money. Yeah. They also ask you to do an online profile. With an online profile, you receive a lot more calls. It's important that when you have this profile, you're training. We will email you 5 set questions to answer and upload those to your website. You don't need to send us a photo for your profile. We can use a stock photo. Right. For the Trusted Psychics.
Yes.
And I found this out before because a little while ago, Joe Power used to have a lot of phone line psychics on his website run through a similar service. And I spent a while tracking the photos back to the stock photo. So that's Dean, is it? That's not Dean. That is Happy Man number 7. Yeah. However, callers like to connect to readers with real photos. It makes the connection feel more genuine. Due to regulations, you cannot use the following words in your online profile: accurate, honest, trustworthy, help, change your life. It also says, please note, while taking a tarot, psychic or medium call, you must steer away from all health-related issues, legal issues, and any in-depth financial issues that require specialist advice. We're providing an entertainment service and want the caller to feel at ease always. And this is the thing. They put that disclaimer in there, but how often does that disclaimer get lived to? How often do the psychics actually end up talking about health and things like that? Well, actually, I know that to a small degree, because a little while ago, I got contacted by a former phone line psychic worker, and I met her. I went along to meet her. She was living in the Midlands, and I went along to actually have a coffee with her. It was a very interesting afternoon, and she told me that she did it for many, many years. She jumped from service to service. Mm-hmm. For one thing, you could be on a service for one named psychic over here, so you might be on the Russell Grant line, and if the Justin Topper line is getting too many calls, you'll just be sent those calls. So even when you're calling the ones for that particular one, even if it's not through the same phone line service, they'll partner up and share things anyway. So It's all kind of quite close together. But she also said there were a lot of calls that she got over the years that she was doing it, where the person would call up and was very vulnerable. They would regularly call her for an awful long time, and she felt bad about sort of taking their money because they'd call for like an hour a week. But she was encouraged to keep those conversations going, regardless of whether it was in the person's best interest. There were people expressing the fact that they were in debt, and there would be nothing really in there to stop her spending a long time. And if she didn't keep the phone conversations going long enough, there'd be conversations about why aren't you doing this? You'd get less work that way. So people who are on the phone the longest get paid the most. If you log 20 hours a week, your rate per call goes up, so you're incentivized to do a lot more longer calls in that way. She'd also get people calling up who were suffering from health issues, and we'll talk about health issues, even people who were saying they were suicidal. And she said in those cases, she would forward those calls to her manager, which is part of the process. You just forward that straight to a manager. But she said she never got any indication that that went any further, that there was any further additional help in there. And I think this is the problem, because a lot of people put a lot of stock in these things. We can see this as being a little bit of something silly, a little bit of something funny in the back of its fate. But I think this is actually a really damaging thing.
Yeah.
But I'll see how I get on. I might make it through. I might start actually doing psychic readings. And if I do, I'll tell you all about it on a future show.
So last episode, we spent an absurd amount of time talking about biscuits.
We did.
Which
It's gone down really well.
Yeah. I had anticipated people going, what the fuck? Talk about fucking skepticism. I don't give a shit about a pink wafer. But actually, all the feedback on the biscuit story has been really positive.
It's taught us two things, I think, because we had a conversation a little while before that about Yorkshire puddings.
Yes.
That went down really well as well. So it turns out when we talk about foodstuffs and not about skepticism, people really like it. But if we talk about stuff that isn't skepticism at the start rather than the end, people really hate it. So we just need to keep all our chit-chat and bullshit to the last hour of the show and just pack 10 minutes of skepticism up front. So that people say, I don't give a fuck about your life, just tell me something skeptical. And that way we'll produce an ideal show.
Well, we shamelessly baited listeners during the biscuit chat as well, saying we've got a bit about eggs. If you want to write in about eggs, ask us about eggs.
Oh, we have got a bit about eggs.
And somebody took the bait. Somebody
on Egg Chat
asked us the question.
This is timely Egg Chat because loads of eggs have been withdrawn in the UK and I can't remember why.
Because they've been contaminated with some chemical, I can't remember the name of it, from Dutch farms, I think. So it's only eggs that have gone into processed egg products. All of our actual eggs,
Shelled eggs
are
shelled
British,
Gotcha.
from British farms, but all
it's
of
the
our
Dutch
processed
farms.
eggs have come through.
There's a theory on, I forget which podcast it is that I listen to, it might be a football ramble, that the adjective Dutch, as a descriptive of everything, turns any noun into a euphemism. Like, Dutch farm sounds dirty. It's like there's something going there, and it's true of absolutely anything at all. Dutch egg,
yeah,
Dutch pillow. It also, for some reason, I mean, and we've got listeners from the Netherlands. It's not personal. It's just there's something funny about that as an adjective. I don't know.
So we got an email in from Alex. And Alex said, "Okay, you asked for it, so I'm asking. I'm a public health inspector in Eastern Canada." And a lovely lady I inspect twice a year is Welsh.
Sorry, whose farm I inspect twice a year, not just a lady I inspect twice a year. Well, he's a public health inspector, so he's just inspecting the health of the public.
Yes.
So he goes one by one around Eastern Canada. There are four public health inspectors in Canada. There's an Eastern one, a Northern one, a Southern one, and a Western one. And they just work their way through the Canadian population on a day-by-day basis. It takes them 6 months to get through the entire population of their quadrant, and then they go around again.
Inspecting one at a time. A lovely lady I inspect twice yearly is Welsh, and she makes beautiful baked goods.
Oh, good.
You see.
As a reward for his inspections.
We have argued in the past about eggs because she insists that eggs should be held at room temperature and that her baked goods come out better that way. I won because our regulations specifically require eggs to be stored refrigerated. She tells me that that's not the way it's done across the pond. So tell me, do you refrigerate eggs? And if not, why not?
Okay.
So I know the answer to this.
Yeah, there's a definitive answer.
There is a definitive, real,
it's not just a custom.
Actual answer to this. So the problem with eggs is that they pop out of chickens' arses.
They do. Cloacas.
And by arses, I mean cloacas.
Yeah.
Which means that occasionally eggs end up covered in chicken shit. That could be a problem because chicken shit can have bacteria in, which is harmful, and that's not good, and the people can get sick. And
do you know this?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. It's just you were looking sort of like either vague, and I thought you were genuinely interested, or faking it. But I know which we got. It's fine.
It turns out that Britain and America have both solved this problem. In fact, Britain and the EU have solved it one way, and America has solved it a different way. America solved this problem by washing eggs.
Yeah.
So eggs come out, they are washed, they are cleaned, they have a special coating put on them afterwards to kind of like...
A special coating?
Yeah. There's regulations for how you have to treat the eggs, and those eggs are then refrigerated, which extends their shelf life. And would also stop any bacteria that was growing within the egg. It would stop it growing as quickly because it was cold.
It's refrigerated. That's what a refrigerator is for.
Yes. And then you buy your eggs and you take them home and you put them in the fridge and you crack them open and you make a lovely, beautiful cake, unless you're a Welsh lady living in Canada.
Yeah.
The British solved this problem in a completely different way. We solved this problem, one, by banning farmers from cleaning eggs.
Yeah.
Which sounds like an absurd thing to do, but American listeners are going to be aghast at this because quite often you will go to the supermarket in Britain where we do not have eggs. They are not in the refrigerated section. They are just on ordinary shelves. And you open the box and there is quite often bits of chicken shit and often feathers stuck to the outside of the egg.
Feathers, yes. Chicken shit, less so recently. I mean, I don't buy a lot of eggs, but I don't remember seeing a lot of chicken shit on them.
Well,
they used to, but
why do you
chicken shit on eggs is like an 80s thing.
Why do you think the feather is stuck to the outside?
Yeah, but sometimes you just get the feather in the box. Like there's a feather there.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chicken shit on eggs is quite an 80s, 90s thing. I think white dog poo is an 80s thing. Chicken shit on eggs is a 90s
it's
thing.
A 90s thing.
Yeah.
The reason for this is that it is illegal in the EU to wash chickens' eggs. The idea of that is it forces farmers toward good animal husbandry. Because if your chicken coop is a fucking state, your eggs will be covered in crap because you're not allowed to wash them. Quite literally covered in crap because you're not allowed to wash them. And so no consumers will buy them. And so in order for your eggs to look palatable, you have to keep good animal husbandry, which means your chickens aren't sitting there in shit because otherwise the eggs would be covered in shit. And those. So that's a thing. Now, there is a knock-on effect of that, which means the outside of the shell is covered in shit.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
And the bacteria associated with that.
Indeed. And there's a way around that. So for the one thing, as the egg is being laid, it gets covered by what's called a cuticle, which is a coating that the chicken puts on the thing. And the American system washes the cuticle off. Just as a byproduct of the way they clean the egg, which is one of the reasons they put the special coating on afterwards, is to kind of...
A fake cuticle.
Is to kind of quasi-replace the cuticle. But the cuticle is intact on a British egg.
Just so listeners are aware, Mike's doing this from no notes.
Yes, I know
like,
this.
Just be absolutely clear, because it sounds like one of your normal bits, but you have not got any notes in front of you, and you haven't researched this.
No, I just know this off the top of my head.
This level of detail, though, because I could have given you the 30-second version. I didn't know this was going to be an entire bit for you. So yeah, carry on, full detail.
So
who came up with the law to stop washing chickens?
It was Europe, wasn't it? Bloody Europe.
You can't name it.
Europeans.
What year to come in?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
So the egg is covered by the cuticle. That helps seal the shell. Now, a dry shell is not permeable. So dry shell is good. A wet shell is permeable.
Is that true?
Yes.
I thought a dry shell is permeable. It's just less permeable. And that's how you can tell, because eggs float when they're wrong.
A dry shell is pretty much impermeable.
Maybe it's only American eggs float when they're bad, or don't float when they're bad.
I don't know.
It's because it's to do with the air content and how long they've been out in the air and allowed air to porously get in.
Is it?
And that's why, because it's a measure of time. It's not my understanding, and this is not well researched, is that it's a measure of time rather than a measure of how bad the egg is inside.
Okay.
But if the egg has been about that long, then it's more likely to be bad because it's got air in it. That could be total bullshit. This bit, everything I'm saying is probably total bullshit. Everything Mike is saying is very heavily researched, just not recently.
So a dry shell is pretty impermeable, but a wet shell is permeable.
Yeah.
And so if it were the case that we were to put British eggs that have not been washed in the refrigerated section of a supermarket, you would go to the supermarket, buy them, you take them out to the car, you put them in the boot of the car, where they warm up on the trip home. Condensation forms on the outside of the egg, which makes the shell porous, which means the bacteria can get through the shell into the egg itself, which you then crack open and make a beautiful Welsh cake with, and then die of salmonella.
Yes.
Which is why we keep the eggs at room temperature in the supermarket so they do not sweat when they are in the car on the way home. Now, once you're home, you can pop them in the fridge if you like, and that's not a problem.
Because you're going to take them straight out of the fridge and then use them?
Yes.
So there's no sweating involved?
So there's no sweating involved. Although if you're going to take them out and leave them on the counter, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
The cuticle...
Although some recipes do call for that. Some baking recipes say you should use a room temperature egg.
But you could crack it first.
Yeah, you could make it room temperature however you want.
Well, the American regulations are interesting on this as well because they specify the temperature. They specify the temperature at which you have to wash the egg. So it has to be a minimum.
What temperature is it?
A minimum 90 Fahrenheit.
You know it.
Or 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the middle of the egg. So it's got to be the greater of those two numbers. So at least 90 Fahrenheit, but 20 degrees hotter than...
So if it's really hot out, you've got to go higher, basically.
So you've got to go higher.
Could it be so hot out that you've got to boil the egg while washing it?
The reason for this is if you wash the egg in cold water, the shell becomes semi-permeable because it's wet. But when it's cold water, the egg inside contracts and actually draws... bacteria from the outside of the shell, which you're still in the process of washing off, draws it into the egg.
Well, it's drawing water with bacteria in.
Yes.
Yeah, through, osmosis. It's a change in the pressure. I can never remember whether osmosis or diffusion is through a semi-permeable membrane. And we were taught it, literally, it was the only thing we were taught every fucking week at GCSE biology. Every week, blank is the process of blank through a semi-permeable membrane. And I forget which way around it is. Osmosis is through a semi-permeable membrane. Yeah. Diffusion isn't, because thingies can just diffuse, because dye in a thing can diffuse.
Yeah.
Right, it's fine. So I have got it.
Okay.
I'm glad it took 2 years worth of me being like 16, being told this every fucking week.
You were 16 for 2 years.
I was 16 for 2 years. Also, actually, I spent a lot of my time being kicked out of GCSE biology.
I heard
Maybe it was just told at the start of each class as a reminder, and then I spent some time outside the class and never got it. I don't know.
Never learned anything else.
In fact, I got an A star, so it's not like I was biologically ignorant. It's fine.
The other thing that makes a difference between the way the British and the EU handle the eggs and the Americans handle the eggs is about 90% of all British chickens are vaccinated.
Okay.
So it's very unlikely that actually there's any bacteria on the surface of the shell anyway, at least specifically like salmonella, is less likely to be on the outside of the egg anyway, because we vaccinate all our chickens because of the salmonella health scare from the early 90s, where Edwina Currie went on TV and said...
Whereas in America they've got all those autistic chickens and that stopped them vaccinating people.
Well, in America they don't vaccinate their chickens, even though it only costs about 14 cents a chicken. They don't vaccinate their chickens, and farmers for that site cost is the reason that they... don't vaccinate their chickens, even though you get 200 odd eggs out of a chicken and it costs you
not in one go
14 cents per chicken.
Massive chicken.
Over the lifetime of a chicken, you'd think it would be worth it to go the 14 cents.
But there's got to be a lot of chickens. There's a lot of chickens out there involved in stuff. We eat a lot of chicken.
I don't know what
they lay a lot of chickens.
Get paid per egg. I have no idea what farmers get paid per egg. But yeah, so it's the problem is about getting bacteria into the egg, and it has been solved in two completely different ways by the American
Which
market.
is better?
Well, that's kind of the point, is they both work really well.
I would say the American version's better. Now I've heard it all the way through. For one fundamental thing, how often after you've cracked an egg do you wash your hands?
Reasonable. Yeah,
I've never intentionally washed my hands intentionally because of that.
After cracking an egg, because I always get some egg gunk on my hands.
I wipe that on a cloth. Probably.
But I kind of go on the thing that, well, raw egg isn't really very good for you, so you should probably wash
raw
your
egg's
hands.
fine for you.
It's not great for you.
Depends on how much salmonella is in it. And
there's not a lot of
salmonella
salmonella. These days, it's all fine.
Well, these days it's fine.
Yeah, raw egg's fine.
But it's kind of been drummed into me, so I habitually wash my hands.
It's like all those raw eggs, raw chicken, they're all good for you.
So the problem of contaminating the egg was solved by the Americans by washing and then refrigerating the egg, so any bacteria that's in the egg will not have a chance to develop, and then you take it home and you crack
So
it,
your Welsh baking lady should be refrigerating your eggs.
She should be, because she'll be buying American-style eggs.
But if she thinks
I
the warm
assume
eggs...
Canada uses the US regulations.
Well, he said that he said you've got to wash them.
That their regulations.
That they've got to be refrigerated, so they must wash. But if she's worried that the warm eggs cold eggs aren't as good in recipes as warm eggs, she should crack an egg and let it warm.
Crack it and let it warm to room temperature first. Although I don't know if the room temperature egg will actually make a difference to her cooking the way she claims. It may or may not. I don't know.
Well, as I say,
it's a common thing for certain recipes to use a room temperature egg. I could see how it would make sense, because if you're using room temperature ingredients, I was just looking it up to try and see if there's anything in it, but only very briefly. And I saw one article saying that if you've got high fat content, then a cold egg can change the texture of the fat as you're making.
And high fat content would be like butter in a cake.
Lots of butter in a cake, exactly.
And if she's making cakes,
or cheesecake, or something with...
But this Welsh lady was specifically making cakes, so I can imagine that might make it...
So,
we've solved this issue completely. This is so comprehensive.
Alex, the health inspector, can, next time he inspects this woman, say, if you want to use room temperature eggs, crack them, leave them in a bowl to warm up, and then use them, because that's the way you need to do it. So the Americans solved it one way, we solved it another. Both ways work, but they are fundamentally incompatible with each other to the point that American prepared eggs would be illegal to sell in the EU and vice versa.
And now we're leaving the EU, we'll be allowed chicken shit or unvaccinated chicken shit all over our eggs as much as we want. And that's what we fought for. That's actually what the vote was about. People forget that. But if you put that to a big fan of Brexit, they will tell you, actually, yes, people did know that leaving the EU would mean more chicken shit on eggs. And that's what they were looking for all along.
So, listeners, that was our listener question. If you've got a listener question about eggs or biscuits or golf balls,
Yes.
We did get a mention on episode 3 of Paul McGarrity's podcast, which was nice. So that was Ask an Archaeologist. If you want to hear the answer to our question,
that's true.
Go and listen to episode 3 of Ask an Archaeologist. And Paul was very nice about us on the show.
He tells us off.
He does.
For you demanding an answer that I then prefaced his answer in my immediate response. I chided you immediately. So you can take all that chid because I'm going unchided for that.
But if you've got a question about anything, podcast at merseyside.skeptics.org.uk. I was listening back while I was editing the show last time. I was listening back to the show and realised we didn't actually say on air what QED was.
Have we not said?
Which, if you're a new listener, you're like, what the fuck is QED? And you might have gone out and Googled it, which would be nice, or gone to QEDcon.org and found out for yourself. But I figured it was probably a reasonable thing to point out that QED is... talk about what QED is on air.
Yeah.
For listeners who may not necessarily know, because we've made the assumption...
Well, we run it, so it's hard. Alice, what is QED? You don't run it.
It's a skeptical conference in Manchester. That's good.
It's good. All right. Good. It's got the Alice seal of approval.
I'm a little worried by the afterthought nature of that thing. So QED is the annual conference that we run in conjunction with the guys from the Greater Manchester Skeptics. That takes place in Manchester each year. We are currently organising the 7th.
It is the 7th
QED.
7.5 years of our life.
I like it enough that I've been to 6 of them. I didn't know you guys when you did the first one.
Okay.
Or this will be the 6th one I've been to.
This will be the 6th one.
I'm not sure that's a good excuse. But
I didn't know it existed. I can't attend something I didn't know existed.
Your own fault, mate. Your own fault. We did the work. We put the work in.
So this is the 7th QED is coming up. It's on the 14th and 15th of October, although we have a free Skeptic Camp Day on the 13th as well, on Friday the 13th.
It is true.
Tickets are £109, £75 if you're a student or if you're under 18. You can find details about who's talking, what's happening, what's appearing, what we're doing at QED. All that's going to be at QEDcon.org. And we have you can follow us on Twitter at QEDcon.org, and you'll also find us on Facebook as well. One thing that's worth a mention recently, because Marsh, you were on Cognitive Dissonance not too long ago.
I was.
And you mentioned QED, and you'd said, this is QED, £109, £70, and if you're a parent and you're like, oh, how do I go to QED because I'm a parent and I have childcare problems and my, the grandparents think I'm a dickhead, so I can't have them, etc., etc., etc. We provide childcare at QED.
We do. There is a crash.
So you can for the price of a student level ticket.
Yeah, so for £75.
£75. We'll provide a weekend of childcare with qualified childcare people who are all, I think it's DR something. It's formerly CRB.
Yeah,
but
they used to be CRB checked. They are no longer CRB checked, but they are checked by the replacement system for CRB.
They've changed that. So we're like fully qualified childcare professionals. We'll look after your child for the
and you get quite a few hours out of it, really, because I suppose they sort of kick off about 8:30 each day and finish at 5-ish. I think it's something around that kind of area. So you're getting like a good 8-9 hours per day, 2 days of that. So it's more than 17 hours worth of professional childcare for £75, which is like a fiver, less than a fiver an hour.
But when you mention that,
they're working for minimum wage.
When you
they're heavily subsidised by us. Yeah.
When you mentioned that on Cognitive Dissonance, they lost their fucking shit.
They did.
They were like, "What? You guys do childcare? Seriously? Like nobody does childcare?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, we do. We have since about QED3 or something like that."
Yeah, they were arguing that it might be cheaper to fly into the UK and attend QED than to go to a US Skeptic conference and have to get childcare separately. Which is interesting. Although the creche does close very, 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 very soon. If it's not, it'll be this week, I think, the creche closes.
Yeah, so if you want to make use of the creche facilities, then the way you do that is you just go to QED, you buy an ordinary student ticket for your child or children, depending on how many you want to bring. We'll go anything. We'll go from babies up to about 12 years old. If they're 13 or over, they're welcome actually in the main event as long as they're accompanied by an adult. Although bear in mind that some people might swear on stage, and also I might swear if you hear me nearby.
Yeah, and also some of the presentations might be massive, massive cocks on screen. Well, massive vaginas on screen and some massive cocks, as was Sally LePage's.
Yes. So there may be some adult themes, but it's up to you. Parental guidance, etc., etc., etc.
There'll be adult themes. There might even be psychic themes. There might be psychic and tarot themes.
So you just buy a normal student ticket and then you email creche@qedcon.org and say, hey, I'd like to register my child for the creche, and we'll go and check that you've bought the appropriate ticket for them and so on. So it's really that simple. So that's QED. So again, qedcon.org. You'll find us on Twitter. You'll find us on Facebook. It's really worth coming. I really like what we do with that.
Yeah.
It's
every
fun.
year we get a load of SWAC listeners as well. Like year on year, we get a lot. So if you want to know who else is listening to this show, you can come along and meet them there. Yeah.
Also for QED, we have announced the Occam Awards, the Skeptic Magazine Occam Awards for outstanding service in the field of skepticism. The Occam Awards are going to be awarded as part of the Saturday night entertainment at QED, and the nominations for the awards are open now. So they've got several categories. They've got the best blog category. They've got the best event or campaign category. They also have the best podcast category. And of course, at this point, apropos of nothing, I'm going to mention that Merseyside Skeptics actually produces 3 excellent podcasts. We have Incredulous with Andy Wilson. We have Be Reasonable. And of course, we have this show, Skeptics with a K. And none of our shows have ever won an award. So if this is your favourite podcast, or Be Reasonable or Incredulous, you can nominate those for an Occam Award. Of course, if there's another show that Merseyside Skeptics doesn't produce and you prefer that one, you're more than welcome to vote for those as well. So you can do that at skeptic.org.uk. And Alice, you're doing a talk.
I'm going to York on the 28th of August. I'll be giving a talk there on cancer and cancer pseudoscience and what cancer is and how it works and some cell biology stuff.
And this is the talk that you've given.
I already gave at Birmingham Skeptics.
And you've given it at Edinburgh by the time this show goes out.
I'll have given it at Edinburgh Skeptics on the Fringe as well.
Marvellous. So if listeners want to come and see you speaking in York, Alice, where should they go and when?
It is in York at the Phoenix Inn on George Street at 7:30 p.m. on Monday the 28th of August.
Aside from that, then, I think that is all we have time for.
Yeah, I think so.
All that remains then is for me to thank Marsh for coming along today.
Thank you.
And thank you to Alice.
Thank you.
We have been Skeptics with a K, and we will see you next time.
We will. Bye now.
Bye.
Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptics Society. For more information, visit our website www.merseysideskeptics.org.uk or email podcast@merseysideskeptics.org.uk.